Alright, listen up everyone. I want you to tell me your opinions about our job as hunters. I'm tired of working blindly to help you, so now we've implemented a suggestion box. For example...
Y'all are fucking weird, man. In what world is Great Jagus harder than Puratoad?
On second thought, the suggestion box is no longer available. You all suck. Ladies, gentlemen, and monsters of all ages, we all know our favorite monsters, right? The ones who are designed so beautifully from the ground up, both aesthetically pleasing and a perfect moveset, they're wonderful. But what about the other end? What about the monsters with the least interesting design, the least enjoyable fights? The ones who you might even be happy to hear won't be involved in a future Monster Hunter game. Today it is time for a dissection of the official, community-generated list of the top 5 worst monsters in Iceborne and Base World. It's weird, it's unusual, and it's a hell of a lot of fun, so stick around to see how it all works out.
You have my sword, and you have my bow.
And my axe.
If you'd like to take part in next week's list, which is the top 5 weapons in Monster Hunter World Iceborne, the link is already in the description of this very video. And if you want to stay up to date on all Rage Gaming community activity, then feel free to join the Discord, also in the description. Those that do vote, make sure to leave a comment on this video as to why your opinion is what it is, and you may even show up on the screen. For those who do not know, I have very minimal influence on the outcome of this list. I simply create a blank poll and allow you guys to fill in the answers yourselves, with a bit of moderation to make sure that a ridiculously offensive thing doesn't make it through. Also, those of you who consider yourself evil geniuses, I see you. When nearly 300 votes in close proximity are for the best boy, it does not go unnoticed, nor unavenged. I have counted every suspicious Dodogama vote and will not be including it. That said, who on earth is out there trying to get revenge on Dodogama by voting against him repeatedly in this list for must have been hours on end? Like, what did he do to you? Are you still stuck on the first optional Elder's Recess expedition in Base World? How long have you been there? Why do you hate puppies, children, and democracy? Sorry, I may have gotten a little carried away there. Needless to say, after seeing this, I locked it to 1 vote per person, which means that you all have to log in to vote now, so blame this person for the extra layer of security now involved in the voting process. Now, if you wait around until after the list, I will be going over a bit more of the interesting layers of this voting experience, including statistical shifts and even a graph, but right now, without further ado, let's begin with...
Number 5, with 4% of the votes.
Oh look, Frost.
Harry?
Shrieking Legiana.
Hey guys, you want to chase a flying monster around the arena for 30 minutes as ice blight and general coldness of the area seeps into your soul and stamina? Then vote for Shrieking Legiana for mayor of bumfuck bullshit.
Well, it looks like we've tapped into the right energy here. Someone really does not like this variant one bit. And honestly, I feel that. The fight is just sort of more annoying than regular Legiana. Not necessarily harder, but definitely more annoying, yeah. Ice debuff is a purely unfun experience to endure, and flying monsters are a pain in the butt for most melee users. Not to mention how quick and agile he is makes it hard to even keep up with him in the first place. The zones that he fights in are all either incredibly small to fight a monster this fast, or full of environmental dangers that essentially cut the zone in half for the player anyways. So unless you waited to fight her until the Hoarfrost Reach was added to the guiding lands, it was just not really a great fun experience. I feel like the design of this monster may not reflect his status on this list, but it just totally makes sense to me based on every part of the fight itself that Shrieking Legiana has snuck himself onto the tail end of this list.
Number 4, with 6.3% of the votes. Lunastra.
Lunastra, do I really need to add more? Shit hit zones, quick swipes that are frequent, blue flames, her supernova unblockable and bullshit. Did I mention shit hit zones? She's the only monster I have to use gun lance on cause of it.
Okay, alright, calm the hell down because you and I need to have a talk about this one. Yeah, you as in the 6% of the community. That's a lot of people. Yeah, you know who you are. I can accept that Lunastra is hard, for sure. I can accept that you don't enjoy the fight itself, but I just can't personally fathom the idea that the fight is so bad for you that it makes you forget all the awesome stuff about her. And honestly, at least as far as I'm concerned, the main issue with the fight is just damage numbers. She used to be just blue Teo, but now she has her own personality filled with moon and crescent-shaped attacks attacks, and her blue fire patches have awesome little interactions. She was a massive technical test for the New World devs to mess around with the mechanics that made it into now beloved Iceborne monsters. I get where you're coming from. I get why you don't like her. I just think it is a bit harsh to label her as the 4th worst monster in the entire game, even if purely on the rest of her design alone.
Number 3 with 9.4% of the votes.
Truthfully, after my first experience with them, I'm not so thrilled. Use water gun.
Jyuratodus.
Jyuratodus has to be the worst monster for me, while there are a few monsters I dislike simply because they are extremely annoying, like Shrieking Legiana. Jyuratodus is different. He is one of the few easy early monsters that don't really have much personality. He is, even for an early fight, incredibly easy and boring. He doesn't really have anything unique.
Yeah, okay, here we go. That's correct. I agree with you guys 100% on this one. Well, at least I agree that he should be on this list. His exact position is a bit up for debate. The specific shape of Piscine Wyvern is probably my least favorite monster shape in the entire series. It feels like you are fighting an oblong cylinder with legs, and it doesn't even help remotely that his head is just a fucking round, mostly featureless mess. He doesn't even really have a unique part of him that makes him obviously him. Like, if I see Baroth from across the zone, let's say in an environment where any monster could spawn, I think I could accurately identify him from a fair distance away. Jyuratodus? At a far enough distance, I wouldn't be able to discern him from Lavasioth, or honestly even Jyuratodus if he was looking a weird direction. Then the combat itself is just super meh. The attacks are forgettable and unimpressive, and I'm not big on the whole swamp fish combat idea itself, where you fight a fish in 2 feet high shallow water, but the fish still works and moves like it is fully underwater. It doesn't click in my brain in a positive way. Honestly, on a purely design and concept level, fight excluded, I prefer the Plesioth style of fish to this, where it feels like a creature that is built to do both land and sea to become more powerful, rather than the Jyuratodus style of sea creature that grew some stubbly little legs because it had no choice.
Number 2 with 9.92% of the votes. Longsword players.
Okay, fine, alright, I let you guys keep a joke answering the poll to see what would happen, and it wound up fucking 3rd, okay? Or at least it would have been if I counted it towards the official list. Are we all happy now? Longsword players are the worst monster. Oh!
The real number 2 with 10.7% of the votes.
Even after they pay me the money, I'm still gonna melt every city on the planet with liquid hot magma.
Lavasioth.
If anyone couldn't see this answer coming, then they'd never fought Lavasioth. It wasn't really any better in older games and received no real upgrades being brought forward that I could tell. Also, he was chosen over our clickety-clack-clack good boy. He's officially one of the worst monsters ever.
Well, yes, actually, that's the point of this list, isn't it? We'll get to the obvious stuff in a second, but that is a damn good point, Morgren the Moogle. Originally, the rumors are that the Elder's Recess's lava inhabitant was going to be Ignactor, but it turned out that the devs couldn't make the Leviathan skeleton work in World, so instead, we got a creature who would inhabit an almost identical area, Lavasioth. What a great trade. I have the same problem with his general shape that I do with Jyuratodus, but the movement is at least acceptable for him because he is literally a very hot fish. So he swims through the stone because he is hot enough to swim through the stone. He's literally covered in lava. Okay, there is some logistical issues here, but at least it makes more sense, right? And then the fight itself, don't get me started on his rock hard skin once it cools off. He becomes a total tank, which means that this fight becomes long. And the fight itself is pretty much classic Piscine Wyvern hip checks, slithery movements, jumping up and down through liquids, and raining down projectiles on your head. Not like actively terrible, but just sort of really boring, especially when you add to it the tankiness factor that he has and how long you have to endure this boring fight.
Number 1 with 14.2% of the votes.
Jesus Christ! That is huge! That is absolutely huge!
Kushala Daora.
Frick, not everyone have bow and heavy bow gun as his main weapon, and Kushala Daora looks freaking great, but he has worst attacks and stun everywhere.
And what a surprise! After making an arguably undeserved appearance last week on the top 5 hardest monsters, he takes his rightful place, at least for the reasons that people labeled him as hard last week, his fight. He isn't just unenjoyable, it isn't even actually boring per se, it is, however, just completely unfun. Not just not fun, but like anti-fun. Every fun moment in the Kushala Daora fight comes from flinching him or flashing him, because you have a break for 5 damn seconds. At best, his fight has a neutral impact on your opinion of him. If you don't mind his wind aura or tornadoes or flying too much, which would be fucking weird, his fight is just a neutral experience, never really particularly fun. At worst is what we have happened here. People who have such a distaste for fighting Kushala Daora that he wound up voted the worst monster in the entirety of Monster Hunter World and its expansion. Personally, I think the top 3 here are the correct top 3 for sure, though the order could definitely swap a bit around depending on my mood at the time. And that just about covers it, which means it's time to look at this graph and take in a whole lot of information in one go. I know there were a lot of votes and a lot of different options for this one chosen by you guys. The first note is just how big the gap is between number 1 and number 2. 4% in this context is absolutely massive. Then the rest of the top 4 descends much more evenly. I also allowed Vespoids to be a votable option, which got 2.61% of the votes, and is particularly interesting because I actually combined all the votes for non-large monsters, including Vespoids, Hornitar, and all manner of small monsters that have aggressive attacks, for a total of 4.45%. That means that Vespoids themselves made up for more than half of all non-large monster votes. What you got against Vespoids specifically, guys? If we exclude the longsword players' votes, which honestly is how I am running this graph from here, then in 7th place is Raging Brachydios, which I find incredibly surprising. Maybe I'm just out of sync with the community on this one, but I had no idea that people didn't like Raging Brachy. I thought he did a great job of entering the new world, and I thought that other people agreed, but apparently not quite as much as I previously thought. And then one last note for those who are interested, according to this list, Jyuratodus is the worst monster added in the entirety of the 5th generation, and Shrieking Legiana is the worst monster added in Iceborne specifically, and I can sort of see that, honestly, thinking about the roster as a whole, mostly because I think Jyuratodus is actually an okay monster, don't tell anyone. And that just about covers it for this list slash experiment slash whatever you really want to call it. As a reminder, if you want to vote on next week's community list, the top 5 weapons in Monster Hunter World Iceborne, the link is in the description, and once again, feel free to share the survey with any friends that you may think have an opinion that they might want to contribute. The more votes we get, the more representative this list is of the community as a whole, so get your friends to do it, even if it's at gunpoint. Alright everyone, I've been Con Dinosaur, and this has been your list of the top 5 worst monsters in Monster Hunter World Iceborne. Do you agree with the majority of your peers? Which lists would you like us to revisit in this style next? Like if you liked the video, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet. This is the brand new outro to tell you all the things that you do that we love, so let's start with something simple and say, oh, we love your eyes. When they're watching us play video games, when we make a bunch of jokes that are kinda lame, or when they gaze upon our failures as we try to kill the monsters or report important news about the Kingdom Animalia. Rage, Continent, Hollow, we're all here, talking about the things you want to hear, so if you want to be the first to hear, like and subscribe and the bell and we'll cheer. Some of you are patrons even though we are all the noobs and you're the pros, there's nothing we can do to thank you. No, really, there's nothing we could possibly do. Goodbye.